Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be checking out a fantasy novel called The Queen's Reaper. And we're really not trying to give away too much of the plot or anything. Like, we're not doing a book report here. We really want to leave you with more questions than answers and intrigue you enough that you'll want to pick up the book for yourself.
Yeah, it's like a little taste test. Just a sample platter, if you will, to get you hungry for the main course.
Precisely. And trust me, this book is a feast. So, The Queen's Reaper takes place in the Kingdom of Harth. And specifically, the story focuses on the capital city of Everhearth.
It's got a cool kind of medieval vibe to it, you know, castles and legions, all that good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely got that classic fantasy feel,
Mm-hmm.
but with some unique twists.
One of the cool things about Harth is its history. Like, it was founded by settlers who came from the sunken homeland.
Right, and they had to conquer the native people who already lived there, the Halidelians. So there's this really interesting blend of cultures, and you get these mysterious Halidelian ruins scattered all over the place.
Yeah, those ruins are creepy. They're full of, like, unsettling rumors, and a lot of the characters in the book are kind of drawn to them for different reasons.
Oh, and speaking of creepy, have you heard about the Drul? They're these terrifying creatures that are plaguing the eastern part of the kingdom, Eastarth.
I have. And it sounds like they're really pushing the legions to their limits. Like, these guys are hardcore.
Yeah, Hopkins doesn't really tell you what they are right away, though. He just hints at their power and the danger they pose. It's really effective. Like, something awful is out there, but you don't know what it is or when it's going to strike.
Yeah, it creates this constant tension. Like, nobody is safe. Not really.
Yeah.
Which makes it even more terrifying.
Totally. And then you have Grimm, who is the Queen's Reaper. He's this super skilled assassin, but he's not your typical cold-blooded killer.
Yeah. He's definitely got more depth to him. He's bound to the queen by duty and also a past that he's trying to forget.
Yeah, it's clear he's haunted by something, and he's constantly wrestling with the morality of his actions.
You get these glimpses of his humanity, like these moments of unexpected compassion, and it makes you wonder if he's really heartless or just trapped in this role he can't escape.
There's one scene that really sticks out to me where he's ordered to kill this young girl.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it. It's brutal.
But he hesitates. And you can tell it's because he sees some of his own past in her, like he recognizes a trapped soul. It's so powerful.
Yeah, that scene really gets you thinking about the nature of good and evil. Like, where do you draw the line? And is redemption even possible for someone like Grimm?
Right. It's so complex.
Yeah.
And it's what makes him such a compelling character. He's not just this killing machine. He's a man who's struggling with his demons and trying to find some kind of peace.
Absolutely. Now, on the other side of things, you've got all this political intrigue going on.
Oh, yeah. The battle for the throne of Everhearth is intense.
You've got Rorik Amir, the super ambitious Lord Steward who's basically trying to usurp power from the rightful heir, Princess Octavia.
It's like a classic power struggle. But Hopkins makes it so intricate and layered.
Yeah, he introduces all these different factions, like the wolves, the eagles, the titans, the crows. And then you've got the Obsidian Legion.
It's a lot to keep track of.
Oh, yeah. And they all have their own loyalties and agendas. So it's like this huge web of alliances and betrayals.
And you never quite know who to trust. Like, everyone seems to have their own secrets and motivations.
It makes you wonder if anyone in this world is truly on the side of good. Like, everyone seems to be playing their own game.
Right. And those games can have some pretty devastating consequences.
You know, in addition to all the swords and political scheming, there's also magic in this world.
Oh, yeah. The curses are really something else.
They're more than just your average spells. They're like tied to the land itself and to the history of Harth. Like they're fueled by the ancient resentment of the conquered Halidelians.
It sounds like they're pretty unpredictable, too.
Yeah.
And dangerous.
Oh, yeah. They can be incredibly destructive, but also visually stunning. Like, Hopkins really goes all out when he's describing them.
Do you have a favorite example?
There's this one scene where Malia, who is Rorik Amir's caretaker, uses her curse to create this massive wall of fire.
Wow.
It's to protect the wolves from their enemies. And it's just incredible. Like, you can almost feel the heat and see the flames dancing.
Sounds intense.
It is, and that's what makes these curses so fascinating. They're not just tools of power, but they also represent this underlying chaos that's always threatening to erupt.
Like a reminder that even the most skilled manipulators can't always control the consequences of their actions.
Exactly. And that adds a whole other layer of complexity to the story. Like, who's really in control? The characters or the magic itself?
That's a question we'll have to keep in mind as we delve deeper into this world.
I'm ready when you are. Let's do it.
You know what's really cool about this book?
Yeah.
It's how the setting itself, like the actual land of Hearth, kind of mirrors all the inner turmoil that the characters are going through. It's like
Yeah.
the whole place is scarred by its past.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. And one thing that I think really adds to that feeling is the whole Haladelian civilization. Like those ruins, they're not just there for looks.
Definitely not.
They represent all this history, you
Yeah.
know, all these secrets that are weighing down both the characters and the land itself.
It's like the past is always present in this world. You can't escape it.
Right. And it's a constant reminder of all the violence and betrayal that led to the way things are now.
Yeah, like you can feel it in the atmosphere.
And you see that reflected in Grimm's character, too. Like, he keeps getting drawn back to these ruins, specifically the Venetian monastery.
Oh yeah, that place seems super important.
It is. It's tied to this really traumatic event in his past. And it's like he's trying to confront his demons by literally returning to the scene of his greatest failure.
Wow, it's heavy stuff.
It really is. And it's not just Grimm either. Like Princess Octavia, she's so young, but she's already carrying the weight of her entire lineage on her shoulders.
She's got a lot to live up to.
She does. I mean, she's the rightful heir to the throne, but she's also burdened by the legacy of her parents and the expectations of a whole kingdom that's on the verge of falling apart.
It's a lot of pressure for one person to handle.
It is. And you really feel for her as she's navigating all these treacherous alliances and trying to make the right choices. It's not easy.
Right, like she's not just fighting for her own survival. She's fighting for the soul of Hearth.
And that makes you think about what kind of ruler she's going to become, you know?
Mm.
Will all this hardship harden her, or will she find a way to hold on to her idealism?
That's such a good question. Like, does she end up just as ruthless as everyone else? Or does she break the cycle?
Right. That's what I want to know. And speaking of things I want to know, what is up with those shadow wolf creatures?
Oh my gosh. Yes, they are terrifying. Like straight out of a nightmare.
And what's so creepy about them is that we don't know where they come from. Are they just like these random beasts warped by magic? Or is there something more going on?
It's like Hopkins is hinting that there's this whole other level of darkness lurking beneath the surface, just waiting to consume anyone who gets too close.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder if they're connected to anything else in the story. Like, are they controlled by someone? Maybe even a character we already know? And what role are they going to play in all this?
It's definitely chilling to think about. And while we're on the topic of chillin', we have to talk about the human monsters in this story, too.
Oh, yeah. There are plenty of those to go around.
Like Swilliabane. He's Warwick Amir's mercenary captain. And he is absolutely ruthless.
He's like the embodiment of greed and ambition. I mean, he'll do anything to get what he wants, even if it means sacrificing innocent lives.
He's definitely not something you want to cross.
Nope. And what's interesting is that he's such a stark contrast to Grimm, who, you know, is an assassin, but he actually shows moments of compassion and even guilt.
That's true. You really see that internal struggle with him.
And it makes you question, like, what makes someone truly evil? Is it something you're born with? Or is it something that's created by circumstance?
Deep stuff.
It is. And then you've got Rorik Amir himself. He's like this master manipulator hiding behind a mask of piety.
Oh, yeah. He's always talking about the god Thondel.
Right.
Yeah.
But is he really a true believer? Or is he just using religion as a way to gain power?
It's hard to say. Hopkins does such a good job of keeping you guessing about his true motives.
Yeah, you never really know what he's thinking. Or how far he's willing to go to get what he wants.
And let's not forget about Malia Rorik Amir's caretaker. She's like this sweet little old lady on the surface, but then she goes and unleashes these insanely powerful and terrifying curses.
I know. Talk about hidden depths. She's a good reminder that you should never judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, and her betrayal of Grimm is heartbreaking because he actually trusted her.
It really adds to his tragedy. Like, he's constantly getting betrayed by the people he's closest to.
So we've got this world full of political intrigue, dangerous creatures, morally ambiguous characters, and ancient magic. But why should the listener care about all this? What's the takeaway?
That's a great question. And I think the answer is that The Queen's Reaper is more than just a fantasy novel. It's a reflection of our own world in a lot of ways. Like, it explores these universal themes of power, loyalty, betrayal, and the choices we make when we're faced with darkness.
It makes you think about the big questions.
It does. Like, who are the real heroes? Who are the villains? And where do we draw the line between good and evil?
I feel like we're kind of putting together this big puzzle.
Right.
Trying to make sense of all the characters and their motivations. It's like what the reader has to do when they first start the book.
Oh, for sure. It's all about connecting the dots. and figuring out what's really going on beneath the surface.
And Hopkins gives you just enough information to keep you hooked.
Yeah.
But he also leaves you with a ton of questions.
Yeah, he's a master at foreshadowing. Like, he'll drop these little hints and unanswered questions that make you question everything.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those threads. Like, for starters, what about the Drul?
Oh, man, the Drul, they're creepy. We see how destructive they are, but we never really understand, like, their motives or where they come from.
Right, like, are they just mindless monsters? Or is there some kind of intelligence behind them, some guiding force?
I know, it makes you wonder. And Hopkins never really gives you a straight answer, so it's just this constant unease. Like, they could be anywhere.
Yeah, you're always waiting for them to pop up again.
Exactly. And then there are the Ovalander oracles, these mysterious figures who seem to have some connection to the ancient curses.
Oh, yeah, they seem super important, but we don't get a lot of information about them.
Right, like what's their deal? Are they just fortune tellers? Or do they have even more power and influence than we realize?
There's that one scene where one of the oracles gives Octavia this cryptic warning.
Oh, yeah, that scene gave me chills. It's like, you know that warning is going to come back to haunt her later.
Hopkins is so good at planting those seeds of doubt and anticipation.
He really is. And speaking of unanswered questions, what about Grimm's past?
Oh, man. Yeah. We know something really bad happened at that Venetian monastery. Something that's clearly messed him up.
But what actually happened there? Who were those monks? And why were they targeted?
And how does all that connect to Octavia and her quest to reclaim the throne?
Right. Is she just trying to get back what's rightfully hers? Or is there something more going on, like some destiny she's supposed to fulfill?
It's a lot to think about. And then there's the whole question of how everything's going to play out in the end. Like, will Grimm overcome his demons and find redemption? Will Octavia unite the kingdom and defeat her enemies?
Hopkins keeps you guessing until the very last page. And even then, he leaves you with this final, thought-provoking question that just lingers in your mind.
I love that. It's what makes a good book great.
It is. Like, you finish the story, but it stays with you.
Right. The Queen's Reaper is so much more than just an action-packed fantasy novel. It's a story about the choices we make, the burdens we carry, and the hope that even in the darkest of times, there's always a chance for redemption.
And I think that's something we can all relate to.
Absolutely. So if you're looking for a fantasy novel that will keep you on the edge of your seat, challenge your assumptions, and stay with you long after you finish the last page, The Queen's Reaper is definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, and as you're reading it, pay attention to those little details, the unanswered questions, the things that make you curious, because the answers might surprise you.
We'll leave you with that thought.
No.
Go forth, dear listeners, and discover the secrets of Hearth for yourselves. We promise you won't be disappointed.